So, we just validated. Now we go to the next step, assess. We're going to start by assessing what we are already doing. We're going to assess what kinds of things we give ourselves a pass on and what we hold ourselves accountable for. So, how do we know when to give ourselves a pass? I've been thinking about this a lot and made a list of the things I give myself a pass on and the things I hold myself accountable for. Maybe you can pause here and make a similar list. Are there things you give yourself a pass on? Have you given yourself a break on certain things over the last year? What are the things that you hold yourself accountable for? I made a list for myself, and here's what I came up with. At the beginning of the pandemic, I started giving myself a pass on alcohol. I typically drink about once or twice a month, but at the beginning of quarantine, I drank almost every day. This may be fine for people, and I am not here to judge, but I began to notice a couple of things. I noticed that once I had a drink, it was hard for me to only have one. I noticed that when I drank, my mood and anxiety were negatively impacted. Over time, I came to the realization that drinking alcohol depletes my resilience. So I stopped giving myself a pass on alcohol. I still drink sometimes, but if I'm feeling anxious or if my mood is low, I really try to limit my alcohol intake. Since I realized this, I've held myself to it, and it has helped me to be more resilient. Another thing that I've been giving myself a pass on is what I wear every day. I have let myself wear yoga pants pretty much every day since March 2020, and I don't know if I will ever give that up. It is amazing. I never stress about what I put on. I am always comfortable, and I'm always dressed for a walk. That is actually one thing that I do not give myself a pass on. I can tell that I am more resilient when I get outside and move my body in some way every day. Moving my body makes a difference in my ability to navigate stressful situations. Some days I miss my walk, and that's okay, but I try to prioritize getting at least a short walk in, especially when I am feeling down or anxious. In the past, I have also held myself accountable for cooking dinner every night. I recently have found that holding on to that makes me feel less resilient. I don't really enjoy it. It takes a lot of time and work to plan meals every night, and it makes me more likely to feel frustrated when people are running late or don't help. I do cook some nights, but I have discovered that holding tightly to that expectation that I cook every night is not good for my resilience. It creates unnecessary stress, not only for me, but for my family members. Looking back over the list that you made, what are some passes that you have given yourself that are helpful? Any passes that have been unhelpful? How do you know? Do the passes that you have given yourself seem to be strengthening or depleting your resilience? On the other hand, what do you hold yourself accountable for? Is there anything that you are holding yourself accountable for that is making it easier to be resilient? Any accountability that is actually interfering with your resilience? What are you holding on to that you could let go of and still be okay? Is there anything you should tighten up on? Maybe this is something to take note of over the next week or two. What are you giving yourself a pass on? What are you holding yourself accountable for? And how is that helpful to you? Maybe even rate it on a 0 to 10 scale. 0 is unhelpful and 10 is very helpful. The bottom line is that we really have to be intentional when we choose what to give ourselves a pass on and what we hold ourselves accountable for. Sometimes this is called setting a boundary. We have to set boundaries for ourselves. We also have to set boundaries in relationship with others. I want to talk a little bit about building a resilient relationship. My husband and I often talk about the decision to be married. Sometimes we joke that we make that decision every day, or in especially trying seasons of our lives together, every minute of every day. Our decision to stay married has been tested along the way, but typically we've been able to resolve arguments in the moment. One of us gets angry or frustrated, we talk about it, and usually reach some kind of peace and understanding and move forward. Over the last 17 years of marriage, we've learned how to fight fair, and we usually resolve things pretty well. A few years ago, we had a relatively small misunderstanding, and I was unable to reach my husband. I was left to sit in my frustration, and I realized that my anger was much bigger than the situation warranted. Usually my anger gets deflected in the argument, but when I was left to sit with it, I was able to gain a deeper understanding of myself and some of the underlying causes of conflict in my marriage. I took this anger and wrote about it. What came out of my writing was a contract of sorts. I started off by looking at the things I was feeling resentful for and giving myself permission to quit. I realized that it stressed me out to be responsible for things that the other people in my house could do for themselves, and it really bothered me to feel responsible for things that I couldn't finish. Things that I could start, but I was waiting on other people to take action on. I was a little passive-aggressive, or maybe a lot passive-aggressive, but in the end, the exercise was helpful. I'll tell you a little bit about what I wrote. I started off by saying, effective immediately, I officially resigned from all of the following. cleaning and organizing the home office, home maintenance, laundry. Obviously, there were many other things on the list, and I elaborated extensively, but it felt good to make a list of the things that I was going to step out of. Things in our relationship that I was going to give myself a pass on. Next, I looked at my responsibilities and found that I really was okay with doing the things that I could see to completion. I also realized that I do a lot around here, and I feel resentful when it is not noticed. So I made a list of those too. I will continue to do the following: work full-time and manage my own business, manage all things related to childcare, manage all extracurricular activities for our daughter, manage daily household tasks. There are other things on the list too. I started off writing this somewhat passive-aggressive document as a contract with my husband, but in the end, it was a contract with myself. It was an agreement with myself that I was going to intentionally step out of some of the responsibilities and hold myself accountable for others. At the end of the day, we teach people how to treat us, and it is very hard to be resilient if we give all of our power away. Let's pause here and reflect. Is there a contract that you need to write for yourself or in your relationship? Here is an example of a contract that I wrote. I gave myself permission to quit the things that made me feel resentful. I also gave myself permission to quit the things that I couldn't see through to the end. I also thought about the things that I did that I was happy to continue to do. What contract do you need to write for yourself or in your relationships? What responsibilities do you give yourself permission to quit? What responsibilities do you plan to continue to do?